Hello? What's up? I don't need these. We're going to get in some business today. I actually made this video. I think I've recorded this video twice already. We're gonna get into some OpenClaw and OpenCode. I'm not going to get into OpenClaw. Dan's got me distracted. Dan can play with OpenClaw. I'm not playing with that right now. I'm doing OpenCode versus Claude Code. Arguably, the two best TUIs for coding. Yeah. So I'm here for your questions. I don't really have demos, but we can go through a repo that I have and talk about it. But I have a list, and it's not just one-sided. OpenCode, it's a complicated comparison. And at first, both of these tools seem very similar. They do the first 60 to 70% of stuff more or less the same. But I think that other 30 to 40% matters. And I want to get into it. I had made a video last week about all this, and then there was a big change in how OpenCode can connect to Claude. And that Anthropic has basically thrown down the gauntlet and forced OpenCode to basically remove subscription authentication. So the one change since last week, this is such a moving target that I feel like every week or two something changes. OpenCode used to be able to, before last week, at least for a couple of months, and then it was broken at the beginning of the year, and then it worked last year. OpenCode cannot use Claude subscriptions, so like the Pro plan or the Max plan. So if you're going to use Claude models through an Anthropic subscription or a Claude subscription with OpenCode, then you have to use API keys, which are more expensive than the plans, right? Assuming you still have plan tokens left. Now, that doesn't mean you can't use OpenCode through GitHub Copilot or another Open Router or Bedrock at AWS. You can still use Claude through there. You can still use Claude through the API key of Anthropic subscriptions. The one thing you can't do right now with OpenCode is use a Claude subscription plan with OAuth, essentially, where you're logging into your Pro, your Max plan. It's the one thing right now I just wish we could fix, because I use that a lot. And we can talk about it, because I switch back and forth between providers and models all the time, and I don't have to leave my editor, which is perfect. I don't use just TUIs. I use I use Z editor, and I use VS Code GUI editor. And then I use the OpenCode GUI, which is actually different and feels like a different workflow a little bit than the TUI. So yeah, we can jump into all that. I have a diagram to look at, and we can get into it. But first, hello, what's up everyone in chat? We've got Lansing in here, P-Buys, what's up? The Yads here. Dan is back. Welcome back, Dan. Cybelly? Sorry if I mispronounced that. Cybelly sandwiches? No. I'm sorry. I'm reading the chat. Cybelly Sanchez. I got it. Okay, sorry. And then, yeah. And welcome everybody to chat. Okay. First off, I need a poll. We need to do a poll of what you're using today. Start a poll. These are called harnesses, by the way. We're talking about an agent harness. That's how I call it. That's what I refer. I think a lot of the documentation is starting to center around the word harness. I know a couple of key people have said the word harness in the last 6 months, and that has stuck on. So majority of these tools in their documentation do refer to themselves in multiple places as a harness, because you have many agents inside these tools. So it's not an agent. There's agents inside it. And then inside those agents, they can call subagents or remote agents. And that has nothing to do with building agents to put on servers. That's a totally different thing. That's just LLM combined with your code. But we call those agents. So the word agent is like really overloaded right now. And so we need to make a new term up. And I didn't make it up. I'm just going to tell you the right term for all this is harness. Your VS Code with Copilot in it, harness. Your Claude Code in a TUI, harness. The Claude Code through Claude Desktop, which is a GUI now that you can use remotely over the web through dispatch and computer use. That is a harness. And to me, a harness combines not just multiple agents, and the agents themselves actually have their own set of things. We're going to go through that. But a harness combines access to models or prompting to models combined with the loop, which makes it an agent where it's a loop. It can keep working. It doesn't just reply with an answer and then quit. And then what else defines it? Tool access, MCP management, authentication to models, token and PAT authentication storage. Like those are all kind of features, some sort of UI to some of these things are just command line tools, right? And so they're all harnesses. And the two that I use the most are Claude Code and OpenCode right now in the 2E. So let's get into it. Everything but Devon. Yeah, I don't know what Devon is. I don't know what to classify that. That is probably in what we call now the orchestrator class of tools. And an orchestrator manages harnesses. Harnesses manage agents. Agents manage subagents. And they all are there just to write files for you. All right. What's your current harness? We're going to say Claude Code, OpenCode. I think I can only add like 2 or 3 options. VS Code plus something, because VS Code itself doesn't really have, like VS Code is almost like a wrapper around, it's a multi-agent IDE. So you can now in VS Code, you can run Claude, you can run Codex, you can run Copilot, you can run OpenCode inside of VS Code. It's crazy. AMP would be a harness. Yes, David. I don't get a lot of AMP people. Let's see. VS Code, something, cursor. Okay. Start poll. There we go. All right. So, nope, not showing screen yet. All right, just created a poll. Can I vote in the poll? I'm gonna do OpenCode. It won't let me select. Well, I would choose OpenCode. Except for right now, I'm like 50-50 between that and Claude Code. Yeah. Yeah, and there's a ton other. Like honestly, I need like 15 different options. Because there's Codex, there's the Copilot CLI, there's the Codex CLI, there's the Codex GUI, there's anti-gravity, there's windsurf, there's AMP. There a friend of mine is making Solo. My friend Aaron Francis, he's making something called Solo. Let's we'll bring that up in a minute. Where does this there we go. Where is this? Solo term, your all-in-one Laravel command to tame local development. Is this it? I'm looking for my friend's harness. I think this is it. All right, we're going to pull that up. But first, I got to tell you a couple announcements. I have announcements. One, did you know I'm making courses again? I'm back in the studio recording videos this year, working on a GitHub Action Pro course for months. And there's a wait list for that. And I've been talking about that for at least 6 months. So you might know about that. But something new, let's see, let's bring this up. Something new I am starting to announce. We technically launched it, we soft launched it 2 weeks ago, and we're calling it the Agentic DevOps Guild. And the Agentic DevOps Guild is a membership program that, like again, I said, launched this month. It's designed for any of you that are adopting AI for basically everything in the software lifecycle right now, other than actual coding daily. Even though that's exactly one of the reasons why you would join this. But I've got several friends that are doing membership programs right now to help you adopt AI coding tools and to get more advanced in things like Claude Code and Codex and Copilot. I'm taking a slight change on that and saying we need to adopt these tools in DevOps, in platform engineering, in SRE, in CI/CD. These tools are coming for our work too. And while that's not what everybody tends to focus on right now in the harness agent model conversations, I think it's equally important because as the news is starting to show for the last 6 months to a year, we've all sort of been predicting that as soon as we start shipping more code and creating more PRs, we're going to have more PRs to review. We're going to need more automation, more testing to ensure that this code doesn't get delayed. And then now I just read last week that stats are starting to show that PRs created by AI are taking longer to push to production because there's now more PRs to review. Those PRs probably have more code because it's so much easier to generate code. It can almost happen instantly. So now there's more PRs to review, and those PRs are bigger. And those PRs aren't maybe written by a human that would understand all the lines of code even when they're submitted. So this is all coming for us, those of us in DevOps and build engineers and platform engineers, anyone who's dealing with managing deployments, automating testing, dealing with recovery, because what's happening is these are, just like we had AWS outages recently and AWS acknowledged, we are having more failures because of our AI written code. This is all going to start happening to, I think, a lot of us. I mean, I think a significant portion of businesses that are shipping code to production and developing it themselves will start to experience more production outages as they try to ramp up the number of things they're shipping. Because AI doesn't have all the context of your history, of your code, of your business. It's not looking at every commit going back to the dawn of the repos. It's just looking at the current stuff by default. So it doesn't understand the edge cases as well as you might do, and the team's tribal knowledge. And it doesn't have all that captured yet into AIs, which means it's going to make some of the same mistakes. It's going to have regressions. It's going to have things we didn't catch because we didn't have tests for those yet. And we didn't even imagine that kind of test would be needed because maybe the AI created a scenario that we would have never personally created in code. So all of this is to say we need more education in this, but none of us have time for 20 hours of video. Like no one has time to watch 20 hours of video all at once. We need just-in-time learning, and we need mentorship and community, and we need people to help tell us what's not working. And so that's exactly all the reasons I created this. It's a yearly membership, and we just opened it up 2 weeks ago. We had our first 2 meetups these last 2 weeks. We're meeting every week, and we talk about where everybody's at in their AI maturity and what tools they don't like or what's working for them. And we've got people already in the guild that are junior, I would say junior in their AI experience, maybe not junior engineers, but they are at sort of the beginning of their AI evolution where they're really still doing just, I would call it tab completion level work, which is totally fine, like no judgment there. We all have our own speed at which we adopt these tools, and some of us are in regulated industries or we work for companies that are not pro AI yet. So there's people that are just at the beginning and they're used to a certain tool. Maybe they're using VS Code with Copilot. And then we've got people at the other end of the spectrum where they are heads down in Claude Code all day, and they're already doing infrastructure work with Claude Code. They're already writing Terraform. They're already spending a lot of time in YAML with Claude, and they are looking at things like harnesses that can be in sandboxes, so we can protect our keys and protect access to the things on our host. And we can figure out how to run these things remotely, or how do I manage my Kubernetes cluster with Claude? Like that sort of automation level. And we got everyone in between. So I'm very excited about the Guild. I've been having so much fun already. This is a long ad, I understand that. But this is where all of my time is spent. That's when I'm not here in this live stream. This is where I'm at in this community. And I'm having lots of fun. I didn't even get to go to KubeCon this week because I was too busy launching this. So there's courses coming. Right now I'm building out 2 courses at the same time. I just recorded a couple of videos for the second course, the AI setup for DevOps. And then more videos are coming. Actually, they should be, it's maybe not today, but recording more of these videos tomorrow, possibly over the weekend for GitHub Actions Pro. So these will be the first 2 courses coming to the Guild. Yes, I will be selling these courses. Yes, if you've been on the wait list for the last 6+ months on these courses, they are going to ship. But I got distracted with launching the Guild. And now that the Guild's launched, I can get back to the video recording. So if you want to sign up for the wait list for those courses, that is a different webpage. But the Guild gets access to these videos as I record them. And then we can talk about them in our weekly meetups. And we have a chat community where we talk about what's in those videos and we share stuff in between me recording. And then when this course is finished, I'm going to sell those courses individually. If you just want the course and you don't want the whole membership thing, and I get that, that's fine. I'm also going to sell the courses directly. And if you're interested in the wait list for the courses, maybe you're not quite ready and you maybe just want to have access to coupons for the courses, or maybe just some of the emails, and I'm going to talk about what we're doing later. If you need me to convince you that the Guild is maybe something fun that you need to check out to advance your learning, like accelerate your learning essentially of AI. That's the whole reason of the Guild. Like, let's accelerate together so that we're not all individually figuring out that maybe this certain tool isn't the right thing for doing DevOps, or maybe there's a certain sandboxing tool that's really better for sysadmins and DevOps engineers than maybe what a developer would use. So you can jump on the wait list for the courses over here. So I've thrown both those links in there. And yeah, what do y'all think? I'm excited about it. We've been working for almost a year to launch the Guild, and it's finally here. We also talked about it on our latest episode that just launched today of Agentic's DevOps podcast. If you're interested in podcasts, which I've been doing podcasting now for like 8 years, 9 years. I never thought I'd be a podcaster. If you'd asked me a decade ago if I'd ever podcast, I'd be like, sure, what do you want me to talk about? Bourbon? What way do people listen to me talk about? But yeah, we are almost at 200 episodes of podcasting at this point, and I'm excited. So the latest episode, that's not the latest episode. Let's refresh. Yeah, this is the latest episode. So we just launched this episode today on the Agentic DevOps podcast. We basically catch you up on the last 6 months of activity and everything that's changed in AI and agents and harnesses and all that stuff, and how that's affecting DevOps and how that's affecting CI/CD and testing and platform engineering and SRE and troubleshooting and Kubernetes. It's like there's just so much, and it's all getting affected all at the same time. So it's a lot. I get that. But normally I try to break some of it down. We talk about what we think's coming, what we're already seeing change in DevOps engineer jobs. And that's one of the things that I'm learning from the Guild is we've got a wide spectrum of how management, how team leads are approaching AI, but there is definitely a change happening in a lot of different organizations. And some organizations, I'm hearing stories where they're letting people are leaving, not necessarily getting laid off due to AI, but businesses are definitely a little slower at rehiring when positions are open. And that's starting to happen to DevOps engineers as well, where they're not really sure if that person that left for a new job is going to get backfilled by a new engineer. The management is kind of expecting them to use AI to solve problems now. And this is an ongoing problem. We have a disconnect between engineering and management on what AI can do today. And sure, if you had a whole team of people that were on the bleeding edge of AI and everything they were doing all day was pushing the envelope of automating everything with agents, you could probably do a lot of CI/CD, troubleshooting, monitoring, platform building. You could do a lot of that through just Claude Code. But you need so much education and experience and tooling and infrastructure just to do all that. You need you need to understand thoroughly MCP and authentication and, creating least privileged paths and secrets temporarily through OIDC or OAuth or something. Like, you need policies around whether the AI is using your permissions or its own permissions. I recommend its own permissions. I recommend it has its own accounts. And I'm not really sure the model yet, but I'm actually thinking for me right now, the model is going to be creating new accounts in a lot of situations where I have to create an account to get less privileges to the AI. But I need to be able to give this DevOps engineer, this junior Claude engineer, I need to be able to give him read only in certain moments so he can at least access things to figure stuff out. And in other moments, I might need to give him write. I might need to give him commit access to a repo and only read access to others. But those permissions are nothing related to mine, honestly. But I'm still the one controlling it, so I'm still responsible. So in some cases, I think I'm going to need accounts that are called, Bret Claude or Bret Bot. And then in other cases, I'm just going to be able to create paths with all the least privilege in a temporary situation to give to the AI. But I need to be able to change these out. Like, what I want my AI to do is to only have access to write specifically when I give it prompts to write. So I need to be able to flip these in and out in real time per token, maybe, or not per token, but per prompt. Maybe I'm going to be able to have some tool that automatically does this for me in the background. And I just flip agents and there's a write agent that has certain keys and certain path, or at least access to those. And maybe it has access to my GitHub command line and my Git command line, my GH tool, my Git tool, my AWS tool, my DigitalOcean tool, my Terraform tool, my Kube Control tool. Like, all these tools have authentication, and it needs its own authentication, but doesn't need its own account. And that's something that I've been obsessed with for the last couple of weeks. I do not have answers on that, but this is not a solved problem. So that's what the Guild's for. Anyway, check out the podcast. I'm excited for the release. What else? We also have DevOps and Docker Talk, new episodes launching. That's my regular DevOps podcast. The non-AI podcast. I don't know how much longer this podcast will not be about AI every episode, but if you're someone who's had enough with the AI chat just for a few minutes and you want to learn something else, like a new Kubernetes tool or a new way to back up, that is what the DevOps and Docker Talk podcast is for. So here's a link to that. The latest episode is about the silent rebuilds. No, we've had episodes that we need to refresh here. What's going on? This is the latest episode. We had a backup show. Let me send you that link. And we don't talk about backups a ton. We've had Valero on the show. We've had ArcServe on the show. We've had, I'd say, at least 3 or 4 different backup products on the show. Placar is pretty slick. And if you haven't checked it out, it's actually potentially a great backup tool for personal data because it can back up all the different personal clouds, iCloud, Google Cloud, Google Drive, iDrive, what's the other one? OneDrive, S3. It can back up Notion, which I think is pretty cool. It can back up databases, file systems, cloud servers, Kubernetes. It can back up to artifacts in Docker registries, which it was so cool. They actually, on the show, I suggested the idea. Did you know that you can back up to container registries like that? It's just an artifact. Let's store it in the artifact store. And they went and created an extension for that. And now there's an integration so that you can back up to, we can back up certain things. It doesn't have to be images, right? Because Docker Hub is now not just an image store. It is an artifact store. It's kind of like a JFrog. And so they built that, and that's pretty cool. So check out that episode, as well as the newsletter. I feel like there's just so much stuff to talk about. Bret.news. So we've got that. I am behind on newsletters right now, but if you want to get on the newsletter, and the way you find out about all my content and stuff eventually is through the newsletter. I admit I'm not sending weekly updates like I used to, but if you're not following me on social, this is the next best thing. So go check that out as well. All right, what's up in chat? What do we got? Oh my goodness. Yeah, Lansing saying GitHub Copilot is the one used the most. I wish I could put this poll on screen. So it looks like the poll is split. Claude Code is 32%, OpenCode 28%, 29%. I'm pretty impressed on that. I would not have thought that many people were using OpenCode. VS Code is 28%, and then something else 14%. So we're like in a three-way tie, more or less. Claude Code is a slight edge. I'm actually surprised about that, and awesome. I'm glad that I know you only can pick one there, so you got to pick like the one you're into this week. But very cool. I would have guessed like 60% Claude Code. Actually, I would have suspected more VS Code than Claude Code, because Claude Code to me, like that's another level. That's more. That's not day one AI, right? And of course, we've all had a couple of years now to mess with this stuff. But if you look at my Scala draw, I have this diagram. This is I've been using this. This is from Steve Yegi, Gastown, created beads, and I love this diagram for describing where we're all at. And so tell me in chat, which figure are you? If you're figure one, you're basically not using, you're basically not using an IDE. Or sorry, you're not using an AI in figure one. And then do this. No. Option Z? Yeah. If you're in figure one, you're not using AI. Figure two is day one in AI, right? You got this little chat window on the left side. You're on full safety, right? So that's how we all start, is full safety, a little paranoid about it running ragged on our systems. That's totally normal. And then you maybe turn off safety and you're still chatting on the side, but still very much focused on code. You're looking at code. You might even be editing code, because sometimes when I was starting, I was thinking about just like if I needed to do a one-line edit, I'm not going to wait on the AI for that. I'm just going to edit. So that's what I would do, and I'd have both of them. And then over time, you keep in the YOLO mode. You get trust. You establish trust with the AI. You figure out where it's going to most likely not hallucinate, and you get more aggressive with it. You turn off the safety features, and then now your coding chat is more of the window. Your chat is 2/3, and your actual code is 1/3. Then in figure 5, you jump to Claude Code or another TUI where you're only reading diffs. You're no longer staring at code or editing code in files. You're only concerned about what the AI is changing. And so you're reviewing that, but you're not editing that in real time. If there's a problem, you have to ask Claude Code to fix it. You can't just go edit. You could go, but the goal here is that you're not really editing any of the code yourself, right? The TUI doesn't provide edit functionality for humans, really. And then figure 6 is where you're now managing multiple projects in a TUI, and you're back and forth, you're switching back and forth. And that's where I'm at. I'm in figure 6. I am not yet to figure 7. Figure 7 is like a whole bunch of windows. And figure 7, I think we've got a new term for this. We now have apps called orchestrators. And you could say OpenClaw is an orchestrator, but we've got tools that they don't control all these sessions automatically from one centralized agent. That's figure 8. That is like Gastown or OpenClaw, where you've got multiple projects all running simultaneously, and there's a overseeing agent controlling all the underlings, the subagents. But in Figure 7, you've got something like check out CMux or check out Aaron Francis's solo. You might say that Codex is a little bit like this, the new Codex UI, where you've got one pane, one screen, and you've got multiple projects, different repositories, and maybe there are tabs across the top or tabs across the side. But you're able to have one interface for multiple projects. You're switching back and forth all day, and the single app you're using is designed to handle and alert you which agent needs your attention at this moment, and it keeps track of which windows or which parts of a project. And if you haven't checked out CMux, that's one of those tools. It's really early days for that. I just learned about it from Theo GG, but CMux is one of these early projects where it's based on Ghosty. So if you're a Ghosty terminal fan, it's based on Ghosty. And on the left is my list of projects, so different directories. And then you can see there's actually a lot of detail in the tabs. So it's not just the title, but you can customize the title, and you can see the path, and you can see what the current command is or what it's doing. And then for each one of these projects, you get sort of the standard terminal interface where you can have multiple panes, multiple tabs. And so you can switch, and then you have alerting and notification toast. That we don't say toast anymore. We used to say that toast. And you can manage all these. I'm not quite there yet. I still kind of like my Ghosty more than this. But I think that's largely due to I don't have all the keyboard shortcuts nailed down, so I'm not very efficient in CMux, but I'm digging it. I like it. I like where it's going. It actually has browser tabs in it. Of course, the problem with those browser tabs is they're not great at things like storing authentication and cookies and all that. So it's really just good for localhost. It's not good a whole lot for like testing authentication or browsing the internet. It's really just for, localhost landing pages, stuff like that. But still, it's integrated. That's kind of nice. What I haven't seen is whether or not, I don't think Claude Code could actually control that. Like right now, I'm using Claude Code in a browser, and it's connected to my local Claude Code, and that's pretty slick. But anywho, back to the chat. Right, the one thing I don't think any of us are doing anymore, Lansing Tech Studio, is copying and pasting from a web browser. That is painful, and even now when I just have a one-off command I want, or something that's going to end up being a computer thing, I will just throw out a single run statement where you can just type like OpenCode run. And I think all the CLI tools have this, where they just can output basically a one-shot prompt. And I will do that way before I want to do a web browser conversation. Yeah, Harsh is saying OpenCode is much better to get used to using the CLI. I do like OpenCode's approach, especially because OpenCode acts like it doesn't actually have the keyboard shortcuts built in for NeoVim, but it acts like NeoVim. It takes up the full screen. No matter how big my screen size is, it's always just the full screen. It has an interface like NeoVim has, or Vim. And you can add NeoVim extensions to it, I believe, as a add-on. I haven't graduated to that yet. I should. So yeah, I like that more than the interface for Claude Code. But I love Claude Code's customized power line, essentially. The status line down at the bottom. It's pretty slick what you can do with that particular line in Claude Code, and I don't know yet how to do that in OpenCode. If anybody knows how to do that, let me know, because I would love to change my status line. I've got both of these over here. Actually, I just realized I need to change my theme back to dark. This is another annoying thing of Claude Code. I got Claude Code on the left, OpenCode on the right. But another annoying thing of Claude Code is that it doesn't automatically go light and dark, and the theme support, although I'm guessing, I don't actually know this, but I'm guessing you can add more themes. But themes in OpenCode, I mean, there's just a ton of them. Like, there's just all the hits are here. And this is kind of one of my 12 things of OpenCode. Like, it's just nice to have all these different themes that I've used all of these at most of these at some point. I've used Tokyo Night at some point, definitely Solarize. That's a famous one. I was probably using Solarize 15 years ago. Monakai is a great one. I've not used Night Owl, but I've used One Dark. Material for a little bit. I didn't use Material much. Groovebox was my jam for like 5 years. That's like I had everything Groovebox. My terminal, my NeoVim, my VS Code. I had everything themed to Groovebox for years. I loved it. I use GitHub a lot, honestly, in a lot of my stuff. I guess this is Cursor. I mean, I don't know. I guess that was before Cursor, the IDE. But now I'm Capuchin. I'm a Capuchin guy. I think that's how you say it. And there's the macchiato, the frappe, the latte, all the lights and the darks, and I love that stuff. I love that it's all built in, and I didn't have to do anything about it. At times, it feels like OpenCode. It's wild how different they're actually becoming. Like, because OpenCode has all these themes, and Claude Code has 2 themes essentially, light and dark, out of the box. But then Claude Code right now has a neat feature called "By the way," or basically it's a side ask while it's working. You can do a side conversation, which I don't think is yet dropped in OpenCode. So there's a give and take back and forth between the two, where I'm watching the updates of both, and then I'm like, oh yeah, OpenCode's got this cool new thing, and then Claude Code gets something cool that I want to try out, so then I have to switch over to Claude Code. One of the challenges is that, the memory and the context on all these things isn't universal. They don't use the same storage files. Claude Code uses, as I understand it, markdown files for each session. There might be some JSON in there as well. I'm not sure. With OpenCode, it's a SQLite database, and it's actually pretty easy to go and manipulate that database. They even give you can type OpenCode DB and get right into a SQLite shell. I had some problems with some of my sessions disappearing. It was actually a bug they had a month ago, or more like a limitation. And I was losing some conversations, some session history. And so I was able to just ask Claude init to go and manipulate the database and update the sessions to match them to the directories they needed to be in. And it fixed them and moved my sessions back to where they needed to be. So even though it's a database, Claude, the LLM can handle it because of the documentation, and then it just explores the database schema and figures it out. So that was pretty fun to do. Bad coded back remember when artifacts were the new hotness? I still love to talk about that. If anybody is curious what we're talking about, that you can store backups now in GitHub, sorry, not in GitHub. Well, GitHub Container Registry, but in Docker Hub or whatever, your registries are now general artifact storage. And I have I think it's a great article that I tried to summarize. This is a year old. Well, it was updated a year ago. I wrote it like 3 or 4 years ago, but this whole blog article I'll share with you on how you can use any Docker registry for storage of more than just container images. You can store Helm charts in them. You can store backup files. You can store volumes. You can move volumes around through artifact storage in Docker registries. So anyway, I have a whole deep dive into that a little bit. Gives you some references. So go check that out. What's up, Vladimir? Let me catch up with chat. Anton, thank you very much. Thanks for watching my videos on Udemy. Yes, I am anxious to get back. I'm excited to be back in course creation mode. Alexis asking about API keys. I'm not specifically talking about API keys, but if you have questions, throw them in chat. Don't ask to ask. Have you ever heard of that? Don't ask to ask. Just ask. This is a policy that we actually do in our. We have this policy in our Discord server. Did you know I have a Discord server? Discord.gg/DevOps. Go there now. Join the community. Like 27,000 people in there. We talk about DevOps all day long. Don't ask to ask. This is our policy. When you ask to ask a question, what you're really asking is you're asking a lot more of people when you ask them to ask. If you just ask the question you really intend to ask, then you'll know whether someone is currently present who has the answer because they'll reply to you. Or the question will be there for people that join later and then can answer your question later and come back to chat. So that way it helps us all. Anyway, that's a great article. I often reference that for etiquette when you're in chat communities. Have you used the agent to create the agentic DevOps landing page? Anton, come on. Of course, man. I am not a designer. Yes. Yeah. By the way, this, I love this little graphic, little bonus at the top here. If you move your mouse around on it, oh, look at that. This is actually an idea I stole from a friend of mine, Aaron Francis, who also is making courses over at faster.dev. He's making courses about all the different AI tools, Claude, Code Pilot, Codex, and all that stuff. So we have some overlap there, but he gets into project development and app development over there at faster.dev. But he has that little graphic that did something like this, and I asked my AI to build some canvas to do the same thing. So yeah, absolutely. This was 100% vibe coded. It was not an hour. This was probably 20 to 40 hours of work. It started out simple, and a lot of the work was in wordsmithing, creating the graphics, going back and forth on the design look, and fixing bugs on mobile, making sure the mobile view was not broken, which it was at first. Basically distilling all the stuff down to exactly what I need and nothing more, to try to educate people on what this is all about. Creating the animations for the different things. We had a bunch more animations at first, but the AI was, I found that Claude Opus was the best at helping create this look and this design. And I used the front-end design skill. In case you're curious how I made this, if you go to Claude Code skills, by the way, did you know about skills? Skills are amazing. If you go to skills.sh, you can look for skills, and then front-end design. This one right here from Anthropic was the one I used to create that look. Although I'm already noticing that AI-built websites are probably, a lot of them are using this skill. I mean, it's got 204,000 weekly installs, which means that I've already started to notice that certain websites are all starting to look alike. We're all building the same AI-guided websites. So even though this front-end design skill is designed to help it be unique, it seems that with the same model and the same skill, you're still going to run into the very similar look. So I've been on a couple of websites lately, and they look just like mine, and then certain elements look just like mine. So I can tell that, oh yeah, they're looking, their hero image has a gradient on it, or this little button, which it decided to add all on its own, this little button with the pulsing green dot. I've seen that on other websites now, and yeah, I'm realizing these are all going to be the same. But yeah, totally vibe coded. You just joined. What did you just join? What did you join, Lansing? What exactly? Did you join the guild? Tell me if you joined the guild. Yeah, that would be amazing. Always love to hear about new guildies. And since we've only had it 2 weeks, we don't have that many guildies yet. But we've already had 2 different meetups with 2 different groups of people. I've been providing one-on-one onboarding to people to help understand their use case. And so just if you join, reach out to me in chat in the community. We are using a tool called Kajabi, and let's see if I can. Well, it looks like Slack. It's like a dumb Slack, honestly. And we're using a private chat there because not everybody gets to use Discord, and not everybody has all the different tools. But Kajabi has an app and a website for chat. So I thought we would use that for this guild community, because you should be able to access my website from work, and it is a work tool. It is a work conversation, so hopefully it's allowed by your corporate policy. All the videos are now hosted at bretfisher.com, so you can log in and see the videos in the courses. I think I can log in. I have a sample user. Yeah, I'm going to log in as my test user. So we have all the courses here. This is what the GitHub Actions Pro course looks like. By the way, I'm working on AI. We're going to have an AI chatbot for looking up any content in any of the courses. It'll be able to point you to the chapter and the exact moment. I've already built it myself. I'm actually just trying to figure out how to integrate the authentication and get people into it. So I dump in my transcripts into a RAG and I give it a chatbot. And then I found out that Kajabi is building the exact same thing. So the platform is coming with some AI coming soon, but you can see you can jump into the videos and there's chapters. We have chapters in the videos, which you can jump to. There's resource links for each video. And then there's quizzes and assignments. Actually, assignments are still coming. And I've got way more videos coming. Like I've already got the next 10 videos built out. I just need to record them. And more recording is happening this week. So, by the way, what's up, Prometheus? The red Prometheus even. What's up in chat? DevOps SRE job post now asking for AI, MCP, RAG, etc. knowledge. Have you noticed something like that? That's a great question. I don't look at job boards that much, but I am totally curious about what you all think. So somebody tell me in chat whether or not you have looked at DevOps jobs lately. And quite frankly, I can just I'm just going to ask Claude to go. Why don't we ask Claude to do some research while we're sitting here? Can you search job boards and tell me if in 2026 that DevOps jobs requiring me to know AI agents, RAG, AI, or what are we going to call it? Oh, that's good enough. Do they ask for Claude Code experience? And we are going to use, and I'm going to misspell everything because it doesn't matter, and I'm going to use Opus Extended. Let's find out. We'll come back later. Okay. No reason to watch that AI. Figure 5. Anton's on Figure 5. We're going back to the dev abstractions. Yeah, Figure 5 and 6, I think, like even the best of us, I think, are living right here in this 5 and 6. This isn't a matter, like this isn't better or worse. Like you can be just as effective in Figure 4 as Figure 5, I think, as long as you're not spending a lot of time hand coding. I think we've all, for the time being, we're all going to have projects where we're still doing a majority of hand coding because it's very important, or we're really just focused on tab completion and LSP-like abilities because it's code where everyone is very particular and the AI doesn't get to run roughshod over it. Or maybe you're just not seeing the best results with your AI. Maybe your company is forcing you onto cheaper models, or you have limited access, so you don't get all the best models. And that's another factor, right? Like if you were using last year's models, if you were using, Sonnet 4. or 3.5, which is a year ago what we were using was Sonnet 3.5, you're not going to get the best results. So you might have to be in sort of a more safety-oriented hand artisanal coding setup in Figure 4. But a lot of us, I think, are in Figure 4 and 5, and we're kind of stuck here. I've talked to several friends lately that we just can't imagine trying to actually dance back and forth between 5 or 6 or 7 projects all at the same time. Like that's a lot to think about and a lot of context switching. I think the conversation I just heard from friends, I think it was Mostly Technical Podcast. The Mostly Technical Podcast is Aaron and Ian, and they were talking about like just my own mind. I have to be able to tell the AI what to do, and it's always so fast at finishing the thing I told it to do that I have to think about. I have to think about what's next. I have to project plan. I spend more time planning and specking out like the next few features then it takes it to finish those features. So the challenge for me is that I'm not sure what to do next. I need dedicated deep thinking time to give it like 3 more tasks. So then my projects sit here. I've got this project that we're sitting in right now with both of these editors. I'm sitting in a project for a GitHub Actions security scanner that I'm building. I'm building this for the guild first, and then we're gonna test it internally in the guild, see if people like it, and then we're gonna release this to the public. But it's going to be my vision for this tool is this is a GitHub action that you're running to check the security of your repo to make sure that you're not vulnerable to GitHub Action attacks, which are all over the headlines right now. Like we just discovered this week even more fallout from the Trivia attack. And if you didn't know, the Trivia repo on GitHub was attacked. And these are not exploits in GitHub. These are people misconfiguring their GitHub and vulnerable to attacks from GitHub Actions pull request workflows. That's really where it's all coming from. So it's misconfiguration, it's people not understanding security lockdown, and I've built a tool to help guide you through that, or I'm building a tool. And eventually we're going to give it away. So got to figure that stuff out. And the problem is it's waiting on me. I have to think up what is the thing I need it to do next. And right now I'm having this dilemma of, do I want to give it the ability to lock you down? Do I want to give it the ability to change settings? Because that feels very powerful, to go through an organization and bulk change settings. But that's also very dangerous. And I'm not sure if I'm comfortable yet with a vibe-coded tool that has write access to your entire GitHub organization. That is something I'm nervous about, and I probably should stay nervous about. So I'm not ready to give it that ability yet. Like, someone could totally take the source code and do that, but I'm trying to settle into it's just going to be in report only mode. And at best, maybe it will just give you a bunch of links to click to take you to the setting that you need to fix. Maybe I'll do that. All right. Lansing in figure 6. That's good. Red Prometheus figure 4. Yeah, you want to always see the code for sure. I'm still looking at the diffs, but and then that depends on the project, right? Like I'm not building an enterprise product with 1 million users. I'm not dealing with a 10-year-old legacy monolith of 1 million lines of code or 500,000 lines of code that I have to fit into context for it to make sense. I'm not doing that yet. I'm anxious to help teams who have problems with that stuff because I am very curious about those problems. But I'm more leaning into like we're gonna put some guardrails in with better testing to help with that. And what does better testing look like? What does, besides just putting more test coverage into, the basics, what else do we need to have? What's the checklist of minimum viable CI in an AI engineering world, right? Lansing's asking, do people themselves have to redo auth with Claude Code frequently? It's about once a day for me using the subscription auth through the browser. No, that definitely does not happen. That happened to me on OpenCode because auth broke for Claude, but that has not happened for me in Claude Code, not this week. Jesse is voting for Night Owl. We should put another poll up for what is your theme? What is your favorite theme? Ivor's back. What's up? Been using Claude Code in my job since February. Saved the day a couple of times, and now my team is calling me Mr. Claude. That is great. That is awesome. So I'm curious of how many of you out there, throw me a hand emoji, raised hand emoji, or a thumbs up if you are like the best AI person on your team. Because there's always, like, we've got in every team, there's like one person who's the best at Docker or Kubernetes, and there's one person who's the best in that particular language, and there's one person who's the best at AWS or whatever. And there's probably now the person who is the AI tool fanboy, fan lady, and if you're that person, raise your hand. Because I'm a team of two, and the other person in my team is my wife, and she doesn't code. So I'm the best in my team. But I'm in a group of friends where they are all constantly pushing the envelope, and I feel like sometimes we're trying to like one up each other a little bit. We're constantly posting in our own little chat what we just accomplished or what we just did or what new tool we just tried or what new what new skill we just refined and shared with the group. Panic Compiler is also live. Panic Compiler, are you live streaming my stream? What's happening right now? Is this stream inception? Are we a stream of a stream? Tell me what's going on here. Oh, Brendan, what's up? Scooby reveal. Nice. All right, so your boss put together a DevOps platform engineer role that's referencing LLM tooling. Yeah. I would assume, honestly, right now that every job, let's see what what Claude is saying to us. What is it saying? What is it saying? Great question, Bret. You're absolutely right. Yes, but nuanced. AI agents and RAG are absolutely showing up in DevOps adjacent roles, but they're mostly appearing in a new hybrid category rather than a traditional DevOps engineer. A recent analysis of 1,000 AI engineer job descriptions found RAG is the strongest Gen AI skill at 35.9% of postings, while agents appear in 14% of those that are AI engineer roles though not pure DevOps. Okay, yeah, so these aren't pure. For traditional DevOps postings, the core requirements are still the usual suspects of AWS, Docker, CI/CD, and Kubernetes remain as the infrastructure baseline. Most standard DevOps junior developers in 2026 still don't explicitly require RAG or agent experience. Yeah, see, there was a time where I was curious about RAG, but didn't think I was going to need to learn it because I wasn't trying to be the expert on building AI infrastructure. I don't have any GPUs of my own outside of my Mac. I don't own anything in a data center with GPUs. And I don't consult to clients on building out their AI platforms. But now what I've realized is that my job as DevOps might be building RAGs of my infrastructure. And I might be using other people's tools to do that, but I need to understand what is a vector database, how are these things broken up and stored in the database, how do I manage OpenSearch just from a pure sort of eating my own dog food approach, right? If I need intelligent bots that need to have a ton of context, then I'm going to need a RAG. So one of the projects I'm working on is a RAG for all my content, and I'm doing that on DigitalOcean Gradient. And this is pretty slick. It's the first time I've used it, and this is kind of a lame marketing page, but basically what it is they provide you the S3 document storage. They provide you the OpenSearch setup, and then they automatically ingest or pull your content into the database whenever. And then they have the agent SDK that and then a chatbot experience with a web interface that you can test against it. So if anybody's interested in that, I can walk through that. That's not really something for this that I scoped it for this episode, but I'd be happy to talk about it. And it does work. Now the next thing I'm working on is basically a custom chatbot front end that people can run and log into remotely, and then get access to the knowledge from the courses. But ideally, you're getting access to the content in the AI RAG that's just for the courses you bought, right? So like I need multiple databases, one for each basically set, one for each combo of different courses, so I'm still kind of figuring out the design and architecture of that, of like how if you buy one of my courses, you get the RAG for that course. If you buy all the courses, you get the access to the chat bot for all those courses, and you can ask it questions about the content. It'll give you the links to the exact moment in the video where I talk about that. I would love for it to do screenshots of things or show or understand what it's seeing in the video and actually visually understand, oh, this is the part where I actually show the code of that. But right now, it's doing such a great job with having not the context, having context, but having just the transcripts with timestamps, which are like they're called SRT files rather. But I use Markdown and it works great. I export the Markdown with timestamps from all my videos and then shove them into the RAG, and then I teach it a little bit about how to make links to reference back to the videos with links, and away we go. But it's interesting to hear about your LLM role. I think that's absolutely what we're going to be seeing the future of. Like, I think we're all going to expect to understand the core premise, the core fundamentals of AI tooling, not just the harnesses themselves, but also how the agents work, how to create custom agents, how sub-agents work, how do sandboxes work? How do we protect our AI protect our infrastructure from the AI? How do we make sure that it only has the tokens and the keys and all that it needs? So that's all stuff that we're going to be talking about in the Guild, and I'm going to be making videos about. So if you're interested in that, check it out in the links below. David Clark saying still unemployed. Let us know in chat what job role you're looking for. And something I don't run a job board specifically, but David, if you jump into discord.gg/devops, if you do that, then you can. There is a channel called Jobs. Let's see. Let's see if I can just log in here. Yeah, so we have a jobs board, and it's mostly, I will admit, I don't maintain this, I don't monitor it, but it's something. I do on occasion have companies in here posting job posts, but I'd say 99% of it is people looking for jobs. But every once in a while, I do see people posting job board or job availabilities. I feel like I wish I could ask the AI. I wish there was an AI that could see all of these, and I could say, just pull out the ones from the last 3 months where people are posting jobs. Also, there is a job board. If you're someone who's into cloud native, I do believe we have a cloud native job board now. Launched at KubeCon, I think, last year. Yeah. Oh, was this 2019? Okay, so this is an old thing. Gosh. So if you don't know about this is cloud native jobs. Getjobs.dev. I don't know if this is the Linux Foundation. Okay. It looks legit. Looks legit. Stats look broke. I don't, and yeah, okay, there's only 12 results. This thing is dead. Yeah, that's really unfortunate. I'm so sad that this thing doesn't have more activity. Anyway, oh, well, there are jobs now. Anyway, that's something you can look at. I don't know if that helps, but sorry to hear about your job search luck, but happy to help if I can. Oh, DevOps, PHP, you're taking Nana's boot camp. Fantastic. I'm sure a lot of us in chat are fans of Tech World with Nana. She's actually was on my podcast like 5 years ago, right when she was just starting to blow up, but way long ago. Like, she's 10x'd the size of her community since then. So very excited to hear about her success. And she was at KubeCon Amsterdam, and I was not there, and I did not get to get an USSI. I would have loved to get an USSI. Didn't happen, though. All right. Um, oh, you've been doing RAG stuff for Cloudflare's vectorized product, and it's pretty cool. Yeah, I feel like all the clouds and now and even the minor clouds all have something that's going to make this easier. Yeah, it was very easy to get it set up in DigitalOcean, and it's basically costing me nothing. I don't know, it's like $10 or $20 a month or something. I mean, I'm only using it right now for me. I haven't given access to other people, but it's just to let it sit there and do nothing doesn't cost me very much. It costs me less than I think an instance does, a droplet. The Red Prometheus is saying, yeah, everybody was copy and pasting from Gemini until they saw you using Cursor. Yeah. Yeah. Tech World with Nana is great. All right. So back to Claude Code. Let me get through some of this stuff. We're gonna jump back to the Claude Code stuff. So Claude Code on the left, OpenCode on the right. We talked already about OpenCode. I think OpenCode starts faster. It feels snappier to me. The front end is built in Go, which is a very fast CLI interface. And then the back end is written in JavaScript for Bun. So that's at least how I understand it. And Claude Code is React and JavaScript and weird stuff. And anyway, I don't pretend to understand how they've architected Claude Code. But if we go back to this diagram that I have, and you've probably seen me show this before. Let's pull this up. All right, so this is how I see the world when it comes to harnesses. So you've got here in the middle, you've got your Claude codes, you've got your Claude desktops, your codecs, your anti-gravity. These are all closed source harnesses, proprietary harnesses with proprietary access to proprietary models. And they tend to be exclusive to the model creator. So they are there's a great blog post where someone describes on Medium that these harnesses are becoming the moat. As the models all become equally good, if we all use the best Gemini, the best GPT, and the best Claude models, the most expensive ones, the Gemini 3.1 Pro versus the GPT 5.4 Thinking versus Claude Opus 4.6, like these are all relatively equal in their overall coding ability and overall engineering usefulness. So as those models all get commoditized, and then we have constant announcements of different open weight models that are near or equal some of these big models, the moat is having a great harness. So Codex and Claude Code are both kind of and are sort of in a neck-to-neck kind of battle. One's GUI, one's TUI. They're both going towards the diff view only, not code editing like VS Code. And they lock you in because they can only use the models from their provider. And I struggle with that. Like, I would like to try out Codex and spend significant time in it. I would like to just worry about one of these. But I don't feel like I can because I don't always know if Claude's going to have the best models. Like, maybe they'll always be top tier. But what if I want to use GPT today? Now I got to switch over to a different tool, and I may not know how to use that tool. So the challenge, and you'll see these red lines. These red lines are basically where things are locked in. So if you're Claude Code, you are locked in to only using Claude subscription, and you can't use that Claude Code with other models. You can use it. I think you can use Claude Code with open local models, but you can't. I don't think you can use it with Gemini. And then you have restricted harnesses here in the middle. The restricted harnesses are ones that are a little more loose. They're not made by the model providers. So we got your Copilot and your Cursor and your Windsurfs there, and AMP might also go in that list. But these are ones where they're not open source, really. They are a product. They may actually be a paid product like AMP, I mean, obviously Cursor and Windsurfer on that. Copilot is just an ecosystem of tooling at this point. It's not one thing. But these give you a little more choice. They usually give you access to multiple top-tier SOTA models, state-of-the-art SOTA. And, so they're a little bit better. But the ones that I'm really leaning into first are the open harnesses, because I don't want to live in a future where we have basically gone back to closed source dev environments. I use NeoVim. I use VS Code. Before VS Code, I used, what do we call it? What was the coder that Atom? Before Atom, Sublime Text. Now, Sublime Text was the last closed source editor I've used, and that was 15 years ago. I don't know that I am entirely wanting to go back to closed source editors. I don't think the future is gonna be closed source editors that are locked into one models. I think right now that is the case. Like our companies can't afford every subscription, so they're going to buy you into one. Some enterprises, they buy everyone in the company Gemini. They've got an enterprise plan of Gemini, so you're limited to what Gemini provides. And that is fine today. We are still very early days. But I am not looking forward to a future in 5 years where we're all locked into our own vendors, locked into our own dev tools that are provided by that vendor, and that we don't really have choice. And so I'm putting my vote in for anything in VS Code. I think is great, and OpenCode is my TUI of choice. And I would financially support OpenCode if they took it. I don't think they take it today. I think they're working on enterprise plans, and they're doing that route. I don't think they're taking donations, but I would give some money for that. It's a great product. And then OpenClaw or NanoClaw or what's the new one? Well, I don't remember the new ones, but we've got multiple claws now, and those might be our orchestrators of the future. Maybe not specifically OpenClaw, because it's kind of like the crazy town Wild Wild West, but something like NanoClaw, which recently just announced Docker support. So Docker partnered with the NanoClaw team. It's meant to be the safer alternative, as I understand it, written from the ground up. This is on my to-do list. I have not played with this. I don't know if anybody's played with it yet, but I want to play with it. Vladimir, what is up? Did I just get another purchase? All right, people, we got 2 of you in. 2 of you joined the guild today. I'm so excited. Welcome to the guild. Our next meetup is next week. And jump in the chat in the community and let me know where you're at. Give me the whole story. I want the whole story. Throw it in the community. Fantastic. Thanks for being here. I can't wait to play with NanoClaw. This is the thing that I want to put in my closet and set up the Mac Mini. I have a Raspberry Pi, so I probably should just use the Raspberry Pi. And I don't need an excuse to buy a Mac Mini right now. Like let's calm down. But the Raspberry Pi at least. And maybe giving it access, maybe giving it access to, I don't know if I can use NanoClaw with OpenCode models. But I don't know if you know, OpenCode has Zen and they have Go. And these are actually really cool options. If you're on a personal plan, maybe your company isn't paying for all the tools yet, and you want to kind of get out there and explore the model space, but you maybe don't want to buy a GitHub Copilot or something like that. GitHub Copilot gives you access to a ton of different models. But OpenCode provides 2 things. Zen is essentially an open router that they claim they don't upcharge. They claim that they are giving you you give them money and they do pure API token straight to the model providers at cost, and they pass on the savings to you in addition to credit card fees. So you add $20, it burns that down, and then when it hits, and then it sort of resets, refills your account, kind of like a pay-as-you-go phone, right? And now they have this new plan, which I think is really cool, because I have friends overseas that they can't always swing the US dollar conversion for these models from the soda providers, right? $20 a month is a lot of money in certain parts of the world. And they have got this new low cost where basically it's a pretty cool idea. They're providing you open weight models, which are cheaper. And they're providing you, so yeah, they got GLM5, Kimi, and Minimax. And so they're essentially very cheap, but the best models. They even got Big Pickle in there for free. If you just download OpenCode today, you can use Big Pickle for free. I think there's a couple other ones that are free in there too. But of course, there's all these usage limits, and you have to deal with that. But it's $10 a month. Starts at $5, but it goes to $10 a month. And I love this idea. I love that this can give you a bunch of open weight models for a low cost. This is probably, to me, this would be what I'd give a kid. If I had kids learning AI at home, I'd give them OpenCode, and I'd give them the Go plan at $10 a month. And, skip asking me for money for the iPhone game payment, right? Give them this. Tell them to build their own game, right? Build their own Minesweeper clone, or their own 8-bit games. I've already talked to multiple friends who say their kids are just having a fun time basically building their own games, very low res, like side scrolling 8-bit games, but they love the retro gaming experience, and they love being able to create their own games. And so this to me is cool stuff. I would totally do this if I was a dad. Yeah, Carlos is here from the guild. What's up, Carlos? Nemo Claw. That's the other one I was thinking of. But Nemo Claw, is Nemo Claw the same thing? Okay, yeah. So it's Nemo Claw is open source stack that adds privacy and security controls to OpenClaw. Yeah, so I look at this as a sandbox, not necessarily the agent orchestrator. Sorry, the agent harness orchestrator. That's the name we got to call these things. I'm kind of serious, but maybe not. That's what we're going to call these things. So, because my OpenCode is the harness, which it has multiple agents. It has a plan and a build agent, and it has sub agents. And then we have OpenClaw, which manages many Claude codes. So that's the harness orchestrator. And now we have the harness orchestrator sandbox. That's what this is. And then we have like Docker sandbox, which they've announced multiple times. I don't recommend using this today. This is a great concept. I find it, at least on my Mac, to be relatively unstable. The VMs are very large, but they're working hard on this. I've heard from the team. There are going to be improvements, and I'm looking forward to them. I can't wait for them to drop. But this is what I want. I want what I want. Let me just put it out there on the internet. What I want. What do I want in a sandbox? I want it to be a Docker container that has all that I can customize with all of my tooling. I want that in a compose file. I mean, I don't want to have to reinvent the wheel on everything I'm doing, right? I just spent 10 years learning all these container tools. I don't want to throw them all away just because I'm chatting with an agent. I don't need to throw them all away. So I don't want a full VM for every project. I want a container. I want the container. I want my Docker VM to be able to understand different containers and control the networking and the input and output of each container. I want it to, and it can do that. We have the skills. We have the ability. It maybe doesn't do that yet, but I'd like it to do that. Or I just disable that, and I don't necessarily need network auditing, so I just use containers. I have a custom container image. It comes with, it basically updates every day to the latest Claude Code or latest OpenCode. And that's what this does today. There are downloadable versions, but they're full VMs. They're huge. And it's a VM per project, which makes it huger. And that's a rough start. That's like a V1. But I want to spin up containers super fast. I want each container for each project. I with OpenCode, I don't. Okay, here's the thing about OpenCode. Another advantage of OpenCode, one of the 12 that I'm never going to get through because I can't stop talking about all this other stuff. Where's my diagram? Okay. This is the layout, right? So down here we have the harness internals. It has different agents, the plan, the explore, the build, right? And then each agent inside of your harness is just a system prompt. It's a set of 4 things, really. System prompt, a set of tools, the permissions for those tools. What can you read? Can you write? What can you do? And then the model choice. And that makes up an agent. And you can create custom agents in all the tools now. I currently only use the default agents. I'm kind of working on what I would call like a production versus dev agent, and maybe some rules around what like the production one acts and how it treats things. I wanted to understand things differently and be safer and ask more often, like full safety in production. So I'm thinking about agents that way. Haven't done it yet. But the humans over here, it's interacting with these, and you get it. You get all this diagram, right? Well, let's move on to the next diagram. Let's go down to the OpenCode architecture, and this is where things get super interesting. My OpenCode can just be, I can just run OpenCode, and when I do that at the command line, it opens up a server and a client at the same time, and the kind of like what NeoVim is nowadays. It's a async architecture with a back end and a front end. You could and the same thing is true of OpenCode, where I can now run the serve part somewhere else. And it's just a TCP. It's an HTTP connection. And I can then connect to it from any of the different UI experiences, the TUI, the GUI, the WUI, web UI. I call it WUI. It's better that way. TUI, GUI, WUI. Or a VS Code extension or a cursor extension inside of the VS Code clone. Like these are all the ways I can run the client. And the client connects to the server over the port you select. By default, it's unencrypted. So the way I do this is through Tailscale. And I use Tailscale to on my Mac, and I use it on my iPhone, and I connect remotely. And then I get this wonderful web browser WUI on my phone that's mobile friendly. Maybe someday they'll make a dedicated app, but for now, it's just a button on my home screen that launches a dedicated browser app. And I can continue the conversation when I'm not at my desk. And because the OpenCode server stores your context memory in SQLite, all of these things can connect concurrently, and you can watch the conversation happening on your phone and on your desktop at the same time in real time. Like it's slick. No clouds involved here other than the, LLMs themselves and the VPN, and Tailscale. So this is all in my own hardware, wherever I want to run it, or on hardware I'm renting. And then the server itself is what goes out to the models, not my client, but the server. And then the server also has access to the local file system that's running on. So I only need to run this once, not once per project, but once on the machine. It's kind of YOLO mode by default. They don't have full safety by default in OpenCode. So this thing can access multiple project repos at the same time. And so in all of these tools, I can run multiple projects at the same time. In the GUI, the WUI, and at least the GUI and the WUI, I just love saying that word. They both have the ability to display different projects like CMux does, like we saw earlier with CMux, on the side. And if you go over to, where do we go to OpenCode? If I go to, does it give me I'm looking for a screenshot. Give me a screenshot. Yeah, that's the TUI. I was kind of hoping for a screenshot. Anyway, in the GUI version of OpenCode, it does let you quickly switch back and forth on the left side between projects. And those projects live in different directories. And here's the slick part. I might as well just spin this up. Let's just do it. Let me just show you what this looks like. Over here, I'm just going to do OpenCode serve. I don't care where I run it. It has no password. And then if I jump back over here, it unfortunately keeps all the settings in the current browser cache. I wish it could store them like with an authentication or something so that I didn't have to redo this every time. But I can say, okay, let me open up this project. And so now it's over here. You can see it. This, all my different conversations, of which I really only have one session. I really only manage one context. And then I can add another project. So let me do... let's do release pod, which is me creating a podcast around project releases on GitHub. I want an AI. This was something I was working on last year when the models were way worse. It's basically a self-generating podcast of cloud-native projects and their updates, so that I can get a weekly audio podcast that summarizes all the changes in the cloud-native projects I care about. I thought it was a pretty great idea. Haven't finished it yet because last year there was, hallucinations and all that. But over here you can see at this top thing, this little new button, this button right here. Let's click it. You want to click it? I'll click it. You see what's going on here? I can manage servers, people. I can connect to my OpenCode servers running in different places all at the same time. I could have one in AWS in its own VPC. I could have things in different places and connect to those chatbots remotely. And then those chatbots are kind of like jump servers now. Like those OpenCode servers are my AI jump host, where I'm jumping into the prompt on that machine, and that machine might have certain keys to access certain things in my infrastructure, certain MCPs. I can come over here under this list and I can change not just how many servers I've got connected to, but also MCPs I have configured, any plugins I might add into OpenCode, and then LSPs. LSPs, by the way, are another advantage of OpenCode. OpenCode dynamically adds LSPs to improve the AI response. It does that dynamically. You don't have to do a thing. But on Claude Code, you've got to go add them manually. They're plugins that you've got to go add on yourself. It's up to you to do that in Claude Code. OpenCode tends to come with more of this stuff out of the box, and I love it. So I can see my file changes here. I can see my diffs. I can see my conversations on the left, and then I can see my prompting in the middle. So that's OpenCode GUI. Well, actually, this is the WUI, but it looks exactly like the GUI. The GUI is just an Electron version of this, as far as I can tell. So I love this model of how they're building out the architecture. I'm super excited to see where this goes, because I'm thinking I'm going to have a bunch of these. And I might just take that and duplicate it and have another one over here. And it has access to different infrastructure. And then I can connect these to both of them at the same time. And maybe that's one of the ways we architect all this. I don't know. Carla started with TextMate. I'm totally behind on chat. Yeah, Jesse's not touching these things. Yeah, you keep pointing that out. We know, Jesse. We know you're not touching these things. But what's the risk of giving it access to a work tree on your local machine? Like, give it access to a branch. Don't give it access to anything. Just run it in a Docker sandbox or in a container or in some other lockdown way. And what's the risk there? You're not giving it access to your GitHub. You're not giving it access to infrastructure. You're just giving it access to a code commit. Because then you can figure out, that's the thing about trust with these things. Yeah, sure. If we all read the technical papers, there are hallucinations. But when you don't remember the last time you've had a hallucination, and you literally do these things all day, every day, and you're looking at the diffs anyway, so you're not letting it commit code without you doing it yourself. Because in order for me to commit, I use 1Password. So the AI can't actually commit on my behalf. I mean, it can try, even with my local tools. But the minute it does, it's going to prompt for my 1Password authentication, either through my watch or through my thumb ID or whatever, or my system password. And I won't give it that. Right? I mean, I'm not technically giving it that. I'm giving 1Password that to unlock the SSH key so that it can commit, but because it does signed commits. I don't want it to produce commits. I want to be the one right now still committing. So especially on the important projects. So I let it YOLO in a certain place on my machine right up until the point it has to commit. And then I say, nope, I'm going to go look at the code before I do that. And then I pull that up in my code viewer. Right now I do diff viewing. I don't technically do like VS Code level review. I look at a full diff, which you can now do in that OpenCode UI. If we go back over there, I can open up, and unfortunately, yeah, so these are all my files. This is just a full file view, but if I pull, yeah, see, there's no diff because I need a project. Let's see if I have a dirty project. But I use Fork, which is a diff GUI. I don't know why. I don't know why I do this, but I have created a habit over the years of using Fork. And I just settled into loving it. Honestly, just because when I'm reviewing code, especially in diff view, I'm laid back with that. I roll back on my chair. I sort of settle in with a coffee, and I'm going to stare at some code and think hard about stuff, right? So I still do that as my PR review or as my commit my commit review. And for some reason, when I do this activity, it could take me only 5 minutes. It might take me 15 minutes, depending on the size of the commit. And I'm not hands-on keyboard for it. It's more of almost like a content consumption type of approach. So I just sit back, I got my hand on my mouse, and I'm clicking on files, and I'm scrolling through diffs. And I prefer this. Now I have lazy git at the command line. You know, I have the diff viewer obviously in the OpenCode, and I have diff view in NeoVim. I have all these ways, but I keep going back to Fork. It's not free, but I paid for it one time, and I love it. It's for Mac. I think they have a Windows version now actually. Yeah, download for Windows. I paid for it years and years ago, $60, and I don't get commission for them, but I love their approach, and I've gotten so used to their interface that I just do this. As much as I'm a TUI guy talking about the shell all day, I will use shell diffs or NeoDiff, essentially NeoVim diff. I will do those for quick passes. But when I know I've got something beefy to look through, and maybe there's multiple commits, or I've got to decide, and I don't necessarily want to stare at GitHub because I'm not necessarily doing a review. I'm just reviewing maybe my own code. Or in this case, what I spend a lot of time doing with this app is I'm reviewing what I just asked Claude to do. If I ask Claude to do like 3 tasks and I walk away for 20 minutes, it's diff viewed a bunch of things. It's dumped a bunch of diffs into my screen, and I don't want to have to scroll back to look through the conversation at all the diffs because I wasn't watching it in real time. So then I pull this up so I can see them all at once. And it's sort of very much a drag and drop sort of. It also does things like it warns me when my commit message is too long. It has some real niceties in there that I just enjoy. Yeah, OpenCode Go. I'm glad. I'm glad you're looking into that. How to get your kids to hate you. Yeah, deny them the iPhone game, and decline the phone game and say, yeah, you got to go make your own games now. I mean, there are some kids that would do that. Obviously, they're not all that way, but some kids. OpenCode Go sounds cool. I have to understand the age restrictions, but could be cool to share with my workshop students. Yeah, that's a good point. I've not thought about. I've just recently become aware of like some of these model age requirements and setting up age. Of course, the whole age verification thing right now is not a great situation, but yeah, it's a great question. I don't know. I would love to hear that Go provides. I mean, these are open weight models, so I'd love to figure out a way that these are allowed. Or I mean, that's the question is, right? Is do they have child safety on them? Are they relegated to, are these things very limited to just coding? As far as I know, they don't produce images. They're not multimedia LLMs, I think. So that's a great question. I actually have another friend in High Fivers that would probably be interested in that as well. Yeah, is it reaching out to anything on the internet at all? Yeah, so if you're talking about the prompt injection from the internet, that continues to be less of an issue. It's not a solved problem. But with sub-agents and the ability for basically, this is kind of how GitHub is doing it as well, is like they put these things in isolation, and the text that gets passed from the LLM that went and pulled things from the internet to the LLM that actually has some sort of file write access, there is a pipeline that goes between them that acts as a check. I don't exactly understand the heuristics on it, but they've tried to crack this nut at GitHub so that you can safely put LLMs into certain GitHub actions and not run the risk of prompt injection. So I don't quite understand the filter, but there is basically two sides to the model: the least privileged model that accesses the internet, and then the model that is sort of this is maybe the sub agent, and then the main agent. And there's a special pathway between them where I'm not sure the wording they used on it, but they described the security guardrails there that they specifically put in place to prevent prompt injection from the internet from making it through to the main model that has write access to your files. Yeah, and Jesse's also using fork, so there's a thumbs up there for the fork. It's just stuck with me. I would not think that at this point, especially with things like LazyGit, that I would still be using a GUI diff viewer. I mean, a decade ago, I was using the GitHub app. Remember that thing? It's still around, but the GitHub app for diff viewing. Gemini is 13 plus. Okay, cool. All right, next OpenCode advantage. Yeah, we've talked about themes. We've talked about the session management. I do really like the session management with OpenCode a little bit better. There's just some really rough edges, I feel like, with session management in Claude Code. Like if I type Claude-R to resume a session and there is no session, it doesn't just dump me into a blank one. It kicks me back out and says, nope, no sessions for you. And with OpenCode, if you do OpenCode-C for continue session, if there is no session, it will just start a new one for you. It doesn't deny you access to the tool. There's just weird little quirks like that where it feels like OpenCode is smoothing the rough edges of my process for getting in and out, for getting things done. And I can manage sessions here. They're very similar, I think, in this way. I can rename sessions. I can manage sessions. I can export and import sessions into Markdown. I can manage the sessions in the DB directly if I wanted to access the DB directly. I can, I'm thinking they added some new tools around sessions. Yeah, export, import, continue, fork sessions, which they both do that, obviously. The one thing that OpenCode doesn't have yet is ask, I think. Of course, as soon as I say that, or not ask, but like by the way, which is, I think, a feature that I actually thought was really cool, but I actually haven't used it that much because I've been so trained to wait in Claude Code for the thing to finish or to basically put stuff in the queue that what's happening here is if the thing you can do now in Claude Code that I think was launched last week is if it is busy in the middle of thinking and doing things and searching and writing files and you need to ask it a question in the same context. Traditionally, we would create a fork of that, start a new window. We would come in and fork the conversation, ask the questions in there. But in this case, you can do a by the way, which async answers questions or does things that without breaking or waiting on the main session to finish. So that's called by the way. That's a new thing in Claude Code. I talked about that OpenCode has access to tons of models. If you look on mine, you can see that if I just type connect, I can see all the different providers. I mean, look at this provider list. It's insane. Like there's dozens of providers. And I have connected it to, I mean, OpenCode Zen is by default. It already has those. So you can use OpenCode out of the box without shedding a dime. You get Big Pickle and a couple other little AI tools or AI models, but you don't have to pay for them. Of course, there's limits and they're not the best, right? But, you get what you pay for. And so I then, I've connected my OpenAI subscription. I have connected my GitHub Copilot subscription through OAuth. I have unfortunately now had to move back because Anthropic sent lawyers to OpenCode, according to Dax, and they had to remove Anthropic's OAuth authentication in order to use your Pro and Max subscriptions with OpenCode, which means even if you have an OpenCode subscription, even if you have a Claude subscription, you still have to use API keys from Anthropic with OpenCode, which is... It's sad. It's sad. But I can get the same models through GitHub Copilot. What I don't get, I believe, through GitHub Copilot, because technically these servers are separate than the Claude API servers. So when Claude API goes down, I switch over to Opus on GitHub Copilot because it's still up. Or Bedrock, which is another place where they're separate data centers. So even when Claude goes down, it's nice to have a backup plan, right? And I can switch those models in here at will in the middle of a conversation. It moves the context over. And, so I can switch from GPT 5.4 right back to Opus 4.6 and back and forth all day long. And then Google for Gemini, right? Because I have that too. So I have those. And then I have models. And I have favorited all the top tier models, right? And then you have the free models from OpenCode, the Zen models. So I have Big Pickle, Mimo, Minimax, and Nemotron, which I have not used. The only ones I think I've used there are Big Pickle. But they have free usage limits. I mean, technically, GitHub Copilot. If you have GitHub Copilot today, which you get GitHub Copilot for free with a free GitHub plan. So if you have a GitHub account, you technically have very limited, but still free access to certain GitHub models that GitHub hosts, which means all of us, if we want to try out OpenCode without spending a dime, you get these models from OpenCode for free. And then if you authenticate into GitHub Copilot, you get the GitHub Copilot models for free. Certain models are free. And they're older models, they're smaller models, they're not the best. But you do get something for nothing. And you can switch back and forth between those two all day. Now, you can also run LM Studio, which right now, LM Studio is my favorite way to run local models. Don't necessarily believe all the hype about open weight models for local use. Someone asked me this in the guild yesterday in our meetup. Was that yesterday? That was 2 days ago. No, that was yesterday. Wednesday. We met yesterday and we talked about LM Studio. I love LM Studio just because their UI is fantastic. Their UX is top-notch. It automatically analyzes my machine and how much GPU memory I have and recommends the models that will fit on my machine. And it gives me their recommended list of models so that I don't have to be an expert in what's the right stuff. I can just see the list. On Macs, you want MLX because the MLX format is 20 to 30% faster than the GGUF format. And it will tell you that. It'll guide you down the path of picking the best model you can fit on your machine and run locally. And just like Ollama, it will provide you an OpenAI compatible API server for local use. Then you can point your OpenCode to the LM Studio models, and you now have OpenCode for free forever. The big rub here, though, the reality is, and my friend Victor Farsick over on DevOps Toolkit, who's a fan of DevOps Toolkit, Victor had a great video recently about this, and I completely agree with him and felt the same way over the last year. I have a very expensive Mac sitting in front of me. It's got 48 gig of unified memory. Only 36 to 38 gig of that is accessible by the GPU. So I can fit a roughly, at best, a 36 gig model on my machine. That doesn't get me great results. Granted, the latest Quinn models and all these open weight models that are claiming near Opus and Sonnet abilities But what they don't tell you in the fine print is that that is the non-quantized version, and quantization is the way of taking a really smart model and dumbing it down, essentially, like reducing the amount of math in it to make the file smaller so that it can fit in memory of smaller machines, but that makes the model less intelligent. It's kind of like hitting it in the head. And every time you quantize it down, it tends to be like 4 to 8 to 16, right? Like you're doubling, and every time you double it down, so you go to 8-bit or to 4-bit, it's like you're hitting it in the head a couple more times. So the problem really is that these models are great if you have 350 to 500 gigs of VRAM, which I would need. That'd be a $10,000 rig, I think, minimum. So the cost to buy that thing so that I don't have to pay cloud model prices. And it doesn't mean you can't use open weight models. Like you can go buy Open Router or GitHub Copilot or some other. You can buy the models straight from the model provider sometimes, and you can get these really cheap open core or open weight models that are not trained on your data. At least they're not continually trained on your data. They might have been trained on your data originally, but they're not trained on your current data, maybe, depending on the policy. Like I think GitHub is actually changing their policy now, which I find disturbing. Well, that's not true. They're going to opt you into training by default. So your stuff will be used for training unless you opt out in GitHub. And it's nice that GitHub's giving us a way to opt out. And that's a pretty cool distinction that GitHub has, that their models, you can ensure that your use of them and your data is not used for training. Anyway, it's just bad news, right? LM Studio is great, but I wouldn't probably want to run OpenClaw even on my Mac with LM Studio with the 4-bit or 8-bit models that I can fit, because I'm pretty sure those models are going to be bad enough that they're going to feel like Sonnet did a year or two ago, which meant a lot of arguing with a robot. That's what it was back then. It was a lot of hallucinations. It wasn't listening. No matter what I prompted, I felt like it was just getting things wrong. And I don't really experience a lot of that anymore. So I wish this was different. I am looking forward, and I'm seeing signs here that, sorry, I wasn't showing you LM Studio, but LM Studio, I'm seeing signs that we might be able to offload. We're starting to see where we can offload part of these models to disk, and only a certain amount of the model has to be in memory. On Macs, I wish I could just put it all on SSD and just make slow token storage. Maybe this is already possible, and I don't realize this is possible. But I'd love to take the 300 or 400 gig, Quinn model, or Minstrel model, and Mistral rather. The Mistral model, they're claiming to be great for coding and near the SOTA level accuracy, but they're way too big. And I'd love to be able to put them on my SSD and just know that I'm only going to get because of disk IO, I'm only going to get, 200 token output a minute or something like that. Maybe it's only 1/10 the speed because of the slowness, but SSDs on Macs are really fast. They're super fast. So why can't I just operate slower? And it has to pull from disk every time. I understand why it can't do that today, but that feels like just an engineering problem. It might end up churning a lot of your SSD, and potentially if you're running OpenClaw on it, I could see how it could lower the lifespan of the SSD. But I still would love to do that. I'd love to have a highly accurate but slow model that I can just give work to, and it just takes a while. It cooks forever. Instead of 5 minutes, it takes an hour. I don't care on some things, right? I just want them to go and tell me when they're done. I'd love to be able to do that. I don't think I can do that today, although I am seeing some of these models claim that the model is bigger than what the VRAM requirements are. And if anybody in chat knows anything more about that, I'd love to know. Wouldn't that just kill the tokens per second? Yeah. I mean, that's my GMAS. That's my point. It would totally kill your tokens per second. But like a lot of people with OpenClaw, they're just letting it go, right? It's just sitting in the background doing its thing. So if it takes an hour to do a thing versus 5 minutes, does it matter? There's lots of work that I've been coming up with that I want my AIs to go do. Go check this, go give me this report, go analyze these things, go give me a summary of all this, and do it on the daily. I mean, I have things like GitHub Alerts. Remember GitHub Alerts? That's still around. But it basically looks through GitHub every day for new stuff in their database that's my keywords, and I have dozens of those so that I can get updates on what the internet's talking about with certain subjects, like my name or my course name, right? I want to know when people talk about it on Reddit or in their own stuff. So I have GitHub Alerts for that. I'd love to have AI actually either do all of that itself on a daily basis, or take those emails, then go look at the websites, find out if they're relevant, and like give me an assessment. Because the filter that the filter that Google Alerts uses often gives me emails with a list of junk, like a list of just robo-created blogs and stuff like that, or things that aren't even related. Like I'll look for key terms on like Docker, and it'll find non-technology blogs related to certain topics that I'm looking for. So I'd love for the AI to just assess those emails, give me a summary, send it back to me as another email, essentially, and then archive the emails that it processed. I'd love to do that, but I in order to trust all that, I need to give it a really good model. I don't want just a crappy model that's going to go hallucinate in my inbox, right? So, then I also need to figure out how to give the AI's read-only access to my email, right? I don't want it to be able to send emails or to reply. I just want it to be able to process certain things. And yes, I'm in Gmail with the paid Gmail is what I have, and so that has a new thing called like Gemini Workspace or something. And I've actually been making some AI automations for my email in there, and that's cool. But it's limited, and you have to fill out their workflow, and it feels like Zapier. And I'm like, yeah, I just want to give it a skill. I just want to give like NanoClaw a skill to do stuff in my email daily. Anyway, those are future projects for me. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing about like some of our work, I'd love to offload to cheap or free models for later, for low priority work. I mean, it's like we've got speed, we've got accuracy, and we've got availability. Like these are like the three things that I would, for certain work, I want certain models now, and I don't, certain work I have in certain projects needs a voice model in order to create an MP3 for my podcast tool. So it has to access 11 Labs for that, or it uses OpenAI's voice models. So I've got multiple reasons for creating all that stuff, and the bottom line is I'm too busy to tell the AI what to do so that it can create the things so that I'm not so busy. This is the problem. What have we not covered in my list? Just so you know, on Claude Code versus OpenCode, there's a couple of other little things that I'll wrap up real quick. The session management, I mentioned that in Claude Code it's done in flat files. I believe it's Markdown. In OpenCode, it's a SQLite database. The session management, I think, is far superior over in OpenCode. But one of the things that's cool is I believe with Claude Code, the way it associates the sessions with your code is just by directory path, which means if you rename the directory, you lose the sessions from Claude Code. And I think there's probably a way to fix that. But with OpenCode, they do it a little bit smarter. And I only know this because I broke it one time and had to figure out how it all worked. So the way it works in OpenCode is in SQL database, where it tracks your sessions, is it doesn't use path. It uses a hash of the first git commit of the git init when you created it. So, and then if you're not in a Git repo, it has a global session list where all directories are even, and that can be a little annoying, I guess, versus Claude Code, because if you're trying to continue a session in a current directory and that's not a Git repo, which I do that. I do have some things that I'm running on my machine, like kind of like the OpenCode version of Claude Cowork, where I'm just manipulating files or renaming images or whatever. I want to continue the session in that directory, but that session, if it doesn't have a Git directory, it thinks all the rest of the sessions on my computer are one giant list. So if I jumped over to just like this code directory and then I did an OpenCode session list, it shows 3 different sessions, and I'm pretty sure those 3 sessions aren't for the stuff I did in this directory, because this is a directory with nothing but directories in it. I would never do something with Claude Code in this directory. This is just a list of my repos, my repo locations. So that's pros and cons, I think, of the way that these two manage sessions. I mentioned that OpenCode has this server architecture that I absolutely love and I continue to play with. Both of them can check out PRs, but OpenCode I have used more of. I've actually done it. I don't think I've even done it in Claude Code, but in OpenCode, you can just type OpenCode PR and then the number of the PR, kind of like you do with the GitHub CLI. And then OpenCode will automatically check out that PR branch and then automatically open up OpenCode on that branch. So that's a handy little one-liner. Like I said earlier, OpenCode has a built-in LSP auto-injector. So for any languages, we've basically figured out that if we can give LSPs to the agents, they're more accurate at coding and understanding when the code is proper and when it's not. So with OpenCode, it's automatically injecting for individual languages. It injects that LSP like you would have in your IDE or in your NeoVim. And in Claude Code, you have to do that manually, and I've not done it. So maybe I need to go do that. I need to go do that with LSPs in Claude Code, because that would help improve some of its coding abilities. There are days where I actually feel like OpenCode is doing better with the same Opus 4.6 than Claude Code. Don't know why. Maybe it's LSPs. I have to figure that out. I like the diff viewer better. So this is the diff view on the right of OpenCode. Ooh, am I in the right session? I'm not. I don't see the one that I'm in. Maybe that's a different one. I'm not in the right repo for this, but the Claude Code diff viewer in dark mode is too bright. It's too bright. I don't know why. It might be because I don't remember to manually switch the light and dark theme. That might be my fault. But I tend to like the one from OpenCode better, mostly because it does a better job, I feel like, of wrapping the code with the other blocks that aren't changed. That's just me. Let's see. Oh, and OpenCode has like really cool share features. So I can type in /share, and you can get this with other tools. But I love that I'm not paying for OpenCode, yet they're providing me a website where I can share the entire conversation history with someone else, just with a single URL, no auth needed. And then when I want to unshare this conversation, I can do, is it unshare? Oh, Oh, maybe I have to share before the unshare happens. That's weird. No, I know there's an unshare command. There used to be an unshare command. Anyway, so I love that. I've only used it a couple times with people, but I can see in a team where that would be a lot more useful. Of course, I think all the cloud companies are going to make this scenario where if you buy teams of Claude Code, that there will be shared space where you can actually see everybody's stuff automatically. This reminds me of Dagger, which does this for their CI observability, where everyone in the team can see everyone else's CI runs and test fails and LSP fails and stuff like that. They can see the linting fails and whatnot that they're all having on their local machines. So if you're in a collaborative co-working situation and you need to point something to someone and say, hey, do you know why this is happening or why this is failing or whatever? You all have access to each other's stuff, and it's not on GitHub; it's on their website. And this feels the same way with OpenCode. It's just taking you straight over to OpenCode's website to a shared URL, and that's pretty slick. And lastly, number 12 is OpenCode is open source, and that means that we can steer the future of this. We can affect the future of this. We can guide it with our own upvotes and our own PRs, and the team takes feedback like all open source. So I'm excited for it. All right, so that is OpenCode versus Claude Code. Claude Code tends to actually have features first that are more directly related to the model APIs, because OpenCode has to basically wait for the SDKs and the APIs to update from the model providers. So they're going to always sort of be, I think, a little bit behind, like this whole new by the way feature, or some of the new Claude Code memory enhancements where there's memory improvements and smarter memory in Claude Code. Those things I feel like Claude Code will continue to lead on, but OpenCode I think could possibly be the one that leads on the architecture design, the sort of the usability around just being a better TUI. You know, I already feel like it's a better TUI. I like the way it works like NeoVim. I like the style of it, the feel of the commands. It has the NeoVim style, or just the Vim style commands with the leaders and whatnot, and that really speaks to me being a Vim person. And just the fact that it's multi-model, and there's already people taking OpenCode server and putting plugins on it, like something called Oh My OpenCode. I think it's called. I think they renamed recently. Yeah, it's now called Oh My Open Agent, but this is a project. I have not tried this yet. Has anybody in chat tried this? So this is what it's supposed to do, is take OpenCode, if you're familiar with OhmyZsh or OhmyZish, OhmyZish is my way to shell prompt. Sorry, to I said prompt, to shell. When I shell with ZSH, and I use OhmyZsh. My prompt in my shell, not my LLM prompt, but just my shell prompt, is through Starship. But before Starship, my prompt was OhmyZsh. I still use OhmyZsh because it adds all sorts of niceties like history, command completion, all this sort of stuff that I love about ZSH. Well, OpenAgent amps up OpenCode in a similar way that OhmyZsh amps up ZSH. And I have not tried it yet because it looks insane. It honestly looks complicated, and it feels like if there's OpenCode here and OpenClaw, the craziness is over here, this feels like it's something in the middle, where it chooses models for you based on the agent you're using. And it has more than just build and plan agents. It comes with the strategic planner, the master executor, the agent for deep work, and it has all these specialized agents. And I think it's cute, but it seems like a lot. And I'm still learning Claude Code. I'm still learning plugins and extensions for what I need to do there. I'm still focused on skills and learning how to operationalize a lot of my work with AI using skills. I'm loving skills. I'm obsessed with skills. And I just don't have time for this. But if anybody's tried it, let me know. There are people that swear by it and love it, and it's their only way to code. But I haven't tried it yet. Nice. Jesse and I have the same setup. Yeah. Zero-day prompt injection is a concern for me. I'm starting to care a little less. I feel like for me, I have pretty good guardrails. Like I keep everything in 1Password. I use 1Password substitution locally. And I require auth for all key access. So when I'm running things even on my YOLO local machine, for the agent to be able to access anything remotely other than just web, it can't get those keys without asking me for them. So I don't have I shy away from taking things like the Claude Pat API key and storing it as an environment variable on my machine. I don't want to do that. I don't want to accidentally put that on the internet. I don't want to show that on the screen accidentally. And so I feel like my security posture probably sounds like it's maybe not as serious as yours, but very similar, where I'm very concerned. So I keep myself safe. And The only AI browser I'm willing to use is Dia, because Dia's AI doesn't intentionally control. It doesn't have abilities to control the browser in the same way that these other, like Atlas or whatever these other crazy browsers are from the AI companies. So to me, Dia is the safest AI browser, although I will admit I don't use their AI. Like, I just use Dia because it's Arc, and I wish they would keep running Arc, but Arc is dying, and Dia is almost as good. So I actually do use Claude Code in Dia as my AI in the browser, but I don't enable it unless I trust the website that I'm enabling it for, because I think by default it's disabled. It doesn't read the website or have access to the website. There's a tab group, right? For Claude Code in your browser, there's a tab group, and if it's not in that tab group, Claude can't access it through the extension. And so I only put tabs in there and that I trust, and that and honestly I rarely do it. I just am not an AI in my browser person yet, like, honestly. So yeah, that's me. Starship, absolutely. Gwinuber. Yes, I use Starship. I love Starship. That is in all my shells. If you go into my shell right now, this is Starship right there. It's not very fancy on purpose. I use EXA to replace my LL and my LS. So is it LLT, I think, or LS? I have a bunch of different let's see, EXA, I believe. No. Yeah. So, nope, that's not the ones I was looking for. Let's do LL. Yeah, EZA. There we go. EZA, not EXA. So I do this. Oh, that's not all of them either. But I do this thing with EZA, which gives me fancier LS and LL. So I don't know why I mentioned that. It's not related to Starship, but hey. AI in the browser, why not headless? The require for headed use is an indictment of its trustability, in my opinion. Clicks too fast for me to tell me what it's doing, and that's a non-starter. Yeah, I mean, the most I've used Claude Code for, honestly, in the browser is yesterday I had to do some analysis of my Twitter feed and my Blue Sky feed. And I just pulled the tab into the browser group and then asked it to scroll through and analyze the tweets. And I had already scrolled through all those tweets. I just wanted it to look at them and tell me. It seemed, and it scrolled for me, and it was a little weird, but it was not changing the website. I think that with Dia, I'm not sure if Claude Code is the same way with the Dia browser security. Like, you can't, the browser doesn't have a way to prompt inject it by giving it, like, saying it should go to this URL or whatever. It can't do that. It doesn't have the ability to re-navigate in the tab. So the Dia chooses safety, I feel like, over automation, and I absolutely prefer that. But again, I don't really use their chat because it's free, and I don't know what model it's using, and I pay for models that are the best models. So I find, and also the other problem I have with Dia, I love the Arc team, and they make great UI UX. But even the free version, even the paid version of it, as far as I know, only has 7 days of history. And to me, an AI in my browser is probably the most useful for history, because I'm constantly trying to remember what I did yesterday, constantly trying to remember that website I went to last week. And I can never remember the name of that website or the name of that article. So then when I look through my history, I can never find it. But if I could ask the AI, and the AI had like snippets of what that website was for, which is what Dia does, and it has information about when I went there and what that website was for and why I went to that website, maybe because it has the context of the page before that. That's really useful to me. Dia only stores that locally, they claim, that information locally, but they only keep it for 7 days or 3 days or something. And that's just not long enough for me. That's not useful. I would pay them money this month, right now, if they would give me like year-long history in that, and that I could search essentially a local vector database of all of my browser activity with context on each one of those links so that I could find things. For me, this is a sidebar and this is probably a different live stream, but for me, what I've had to resort to is I have really doubled down on my new, this is like totally random offshoot, but Readwise, I'm a consumption nerd. I was an RSS feed reader. I had Feedly forever. I had Google Reader forever. I'm a blogger. I've been a blogger since before we called it blogging in the 90s, when I was hand typing HTML in artisanal websites that I could show you on the Wayback Machine. But I've been doing that kind of stuff for a long time. But so I'm an avid reader. I'm an avid video watcher. I'm constantly learning. And so I have really, over the last year, adopted Readwise. What I absolutely love about them is their integrations and their AI first approach, because to me, AI is perfect for knowledge management. And I also use Notion, and these two together, Notion with its AI and knowledge management, and Reader with its AI and knowledge management, I'm in content heaven right now, because I pay for Reader and then I plug it into my ChatGPT so it can get the best models. And it auto summarizes, which I'm not always into summarization because you don't tend to retain knowledge well with summarization. But it has all these things where it reminds you about things that you highlighted, and it helps repeat things so that you, over time, it comes back to you with things that you've highlighted or summaries so that you help retain the knowledge. And it has all these AI tools, and it has a reader. So the reader is a fat app, a mobile app, and a website app. And I have this whole triage system where I'm taking things in and then I'm pinning things in order to send those things to separate stuff. So I have like a newsletter inbox, and I put my podcast and videos in here now. So when I'm getting distracted on YouTube, I don't have to go get distracted on YouTube, because YouTube is really good at telling me about videos that I do want to watch. So then I will put those all here, and then I maybe tag them, maybe I don't, but then I can watch these later. And I use the browser extension to basically, in any moment of my day, to avoid distraction. If I see a tweet or a blog or a news article or a YouTube video that's interesting to me, I don't click it and open it in my browser and let it sit there to read later. That's what I used to do, is just let it sit as a tab. But that creates tab hell. And then I'm distracting, because my browser, which is supposed to be what I'm doing things, that browser becomes a distraction, because there's all these things from late night last night and the YouTube videos about Claude Code. And you can see what I'm focused on. I'm focused on some AI right now. And so I get distracted easily in my browser. So my habit now, and I'm actually quite proud of myself, pat myself on the back for this one. I'm quite proud of bringing things into here, just constantly clicking the button in my browser extension to say, put this in Reader, put this in Reader for later. And then it automatically organizes everything down. I actually don't put my podcast in here yet, but I should. And then I can mark things for later. Like if I need to do specific learning for things I'm putting in the course, these are things here that I need to read later. Also, the mobile app will read these to me. It also creates these AI summaries. I can use MCP on this. I can use a CLI tool with my AI and a skill that they build in order to access this data. I've read articles of how people have taken the API with the CLI of this tool, created their own local database of all of this content. I think this person said they had 30,000 articles from Reader, and they pull it in. They create a persona of what they are, what their preferences are for content that they like. And then they have the AI go through their inbox and help recommend things for them, help review things. And this is my triage view. Not this one, sorry. This is my triage view, where this is my inbox where I need to process things, put them into the system. And I've created a wonderful little place that I can come when I just want to veg out. I don't want to be productive, but I do want to learn something or be entertained. I think my next level up is going to be taking it to the next level with my YouTube addiction and dumping things in here, which I can even dump them here on mobile because the mobile app allows me to send things here to the inbox. But creating tags so that I can put in like funny or entertainment versus learning for work. And then when I want to truly veg out, to me, what that does is that keeps me less out of the algorithm. And I'm always trying to make sure that I'm avoiding the algorithms. So I can dump stuff in here, and then later, instead of just letting the algorithm feed me doom scrolling, essentially, I can come here to my curated inbox. And I don't know why. I wish YouTube did this better. I know they have save for later and all that stuff, but I never feel like they're really great at giving me the stuff I've already said I want to watch later. Like, give me that first. Don't give me the algorithm. And of course, they're not incentivized to do that. So why would they do that, right? So I've created this here, and I can do this on mobile. And when I tap on one of these videos, it'll bring it up in the app, and it's great. Yeah, it's fantastic. So I'm diving lately into using all these AI tools, and this thing plugs into my Notion, by the way. It takes all the highlights and all the things that I sort of mark as important, and it dumps them into Notion so that my Notion AI, which has access to all of my notes and everything I do in Notion for my job. We've got thousands and thousands of notes and 8 years of using Notion in there. And these two sync so that I can now have an AI with context about what things are really important, which things I'm highlighting and teaching. So anyway, that's the last thing I'll talk about today, but that's my sidebar like obsession on Reader. I don't know if anybody else is using Reader, but yeah. Okay. Catching up on chat. All right. So, hey, currently using Claude Code to build an app by photography work, but man, it's hard sometimes to not have Claude Code go in circles around guessing when doing the implementation. Yeah. I sometimes feel like if it's going around in circles on implementation, that I feel like at this point, I feel like it's my responsibility, like it's my fault. It's not a dumb model. It's that I'm not giving it some sort of context. So I don't know if you're Xvel, if you're using skills yet, but basically when I have the AI put out some code or do something wrong, if I then have it fix it, and then I have it put whatever that fix, like if that was some context it was missing from the plan, I have it update the plan in the agent's markdown file. If it's something related to like my coding standards or certain modules I want to use or certain plugins or extensions I need to use or whatever, like I put those in a skill for that language or tool that it's using. And if you haven't looked up skills yet, I'm addicted to skills. And so I put things in one of those two places to help the AI not make that same mistake twice. And I find that over time in my projects, the AI will get better. That's one of the reasons why I use one context. I know it's more expensive for the tokens, but I compress often, and I have a single context so that it's got as much of the information of the conversation as possible. And of course, now if you're using Claude Code, as of this week, we now have access to the 1 million token context window, which is fantastic. I don't know that we all should be using 1 million, but that's going to allow me to compress context less and stick with one conversation. I have friends that do the opposite. They do Ralph loops, which means they're blowing away context and starting fresh on every new task. And they find that they can reduce hallucinations that way over time, but it also requires that you have a lot more work up front with spec work. You have to spend a lot more time defining all the details of the project. And then Ralph loops and things like Chef, if you can go look up that, Chef Wiggum and Ralph loops, or beads. And these things allow you to manage hallucinations through enhanced specs. There's also Agent OS from a friend, Brian Castle, who makes something called Agent OS that also does this spec work stuff. And these are all additions to your harness that help you manage hallucinations. And so if you're dealing with true like context hallucination, it's forgetting what's going on, it's forgetting where it's at, or it's going off the rails, that may be a context problem and you need to put more spec in. But if you're finding that it's just doing slightly, it's not that it's hallucinating, it's just making wrong decisions, or it's doing the wrong thing for this moment. That's the thing where I tell it, okay, I'd like you to change that and fix it this way, and then also update the agent's markdown file with that rule and put in the file to say, always do it like this or never do it like that. And that helps it not do that the next time. The founder of HashiCorp, Mitchell Hashimoto, go look up his blog. He has a blog article where he talks about how he used this for AI, this methodology around making sure that it never does the same mistake twice by giving it more and more context, forcing it to document that stuff. Yeah, you're using OpenSpec. So see, yeah, you already know. So I'm talking to an expert. Yeah, it does the job, and he created something amazing. Just sometimes I struggle on complex features, UI mostly. Yeah, 100% of my problem, not my model. Yeah, I have been fighting with it on the website landing page for the guild. By the way, thank you to the two of you that signed up for the guild today. I'm so excited. But yeah, I had the same problems with like CSS and JavaScript canvas and stuff. All right. Thanks so much for being on the stream with me today. We will be back live next week, the same time. And if you're interested in the guild, go to bretfisher.com because that's where I'm focused and that's where we're spending our time lately. See you soon. Bye.